How's it going, everybody? It's Prod here, and welcome back to another video, another Q&A video, which I haven't done in a really long time. I had posted a thing not too long ago saying in the community section that I would do one, even though I said one that week, and it's been weeks at this point. But I've collected a bunch of questions that you guys asked me. I used to do them like once a month, so maybe we'll go back to something like that if people like it. But let's go ahead and start off with one of the questions that I got asked the most, and it is about Armored Core and like the future of the channel, I guess, which is pretty much like, is Armored Core going to be the main focus of my channel? And, you know, am I going to put as much time into it as I have put into like Elden Ring, let's just say? The answer is probably not. I think most likely the game is not going to have enough for a channel that's mainly focused on Dark Souls and like Elden Ring and Souls-likes to keep people entertained. I think it's most likely going to be sort of like Sekiro, where it's more like one and done, and then every once in a while we'll come back and there'll be some mods. I'm hoping that the multiplayer is actually pretty fantastic and a lot of fun, but it really is dependent on like the type of audience there is for it. I don't think there's going to be really enough like content and or like people that want to watch that game to kind of keep it going where it'll get a ton of views. I think it'll be pretty normal, and they have the whole marketing of Armored Core out of the way. They'll start doing the marketing for the Elden Ring DLC. But I obviously will be playing it. We'll be doing a playthrough of it. Am I going to be playing it a year from now? Who knows? Odds are probably not, but god damn it, I'm probably going to really enjoy that first playthrough. But I'm kind of curious as well if you guys are in the same boat as me, where you're just thinking there's just no way this game's going to have like Elden Ring level content, which I think I'm right about that. I think there's just not enough there from everything we've seen, and I hope to be proven wrong. Another question. I really enjoyed the Crazy Halo Mods mini-series. Do you have any interest or plans on doing more videos like that with different games? I do really want to try to do more games and branch out with more game mods, especially with mods. I feel like that's a pretty good way to get into like a bunch of really old games that maybe I have wanted to put on the channel. For example, there is a randomizer for Mass Effect that randomizes enemies, dialogue options, animations, text, giving it a sort of poorly translated vibe. I've really been wanting to try that, so there's a good chance you might see something like that in the future. There's mods for, you know, Resident Evil. You guys saw me do the randomizer for that. I really want to try and do more of that, because I think that mods can be fun on just about any game, and if there's ever a game that has a really interesting mod that I want to try that's not just Dark Souls, I really want to have that option available to me. And I know that a couple people do watch it. I know it wouldn't be like the majority of people. I'm hoping that in the future, one of the things that people come to the channel for isn't just Dark Souls and Dark Souls mods. It's, I guess, mods in general. I do want that to be kind of like the main staple of the channel going forward. And I guess this ties into a little bit of what somebody asked, which is what happened to PvP, you know, considering that was the main focus of the channel back in the day especially. And to be honest, I really just got kind of burnt out on it. Dark Souls 3 especially. Dark Souls 3 was the main reason I started doing mods, was because I was just so bored of Dark Souls 3 PvP. I feel like it was kind of just the same over and over again. You would get into a gank, you'd either win or lose, and while I feel like some of the content was entertaining, it kind of started to become sort of just kind of the same. Couple of deaths, couple of kills, a funny moment here and there, and it just got boring and stale for me to do and edit. I mean, I have so much backlog Elden Ring footage that I still need to edit. And while Souls games and like Elden Ring offer a very unique type of PvP with invasions that I can't really get in any other game, until another game does it just as good, that people like and that I like and the content's great, odds are I'm always going to be around playing some PvP, doing some PvP videos. But for the most part, it is just kind of boredom. It's probably the most boring videos to edit for me. In general, I'm going to be honest, from the views, it seems like it's some of the most boring videos to watch for people. People don't seem to usually watch them unless there's a very specific like goal and like catchy title, you know, which is I guess for most channels. But in general, I felt like just the interest wasn't there. People got bored of it. I got bored of it. And especially with Elden Ring right now, the game, in my opinion, is very stale. I'm hoping for that DLC. I think once the DLC comes out, you'll see a big boom in the PvP content especially. So if you guys like the PvP content, that's pretty much what you're going to be looking out for. That DLC, and who knows when that's coming, so What was your first welcome to Dark Souls moment, and what, in your opinion, was the most groundbreaking thing that Dark Souls, Sekiro, or Elden Ring did to the whole gaming genre? I would say that my first welcome to Dark Souls moment was pretty much right off the get-go. I've said this multiple times, I've talked about this story a couple times, but I quit Dark Souls pretty much right away. The first boss, I just straight up could not beat him. The big fat-assed demon. I quit, and then a couple of weeks later I decided to do a little bit of research, chose the most OP pyromancer class, and swept right through it. But it kind of taught me that there's multiple ways to approach something. If something isn't working, there's always ways to change it, and I think that's one of the things that the Souls series has added the most, at least in my opinion. And it's kind of made me change my outlook on video games, especially difficult video games. I feel like Souls gives people that sense of satisfaction when it comes to defeating and overcoming something that's difficult. It's unfortunate that there's so many people new to the series jumping on Elden Ring and just kind of, doing non-stop co-op, incredibly just storming through the game, no difficulty, having their over-leveled friends carry them. You see it so often on Elden Ring, especially, in Invasions doing invading all the time. I feel like you're just not going to get the full picture of what they want to do with these games when you do that. Well, I think anybody could play the game the way they want. I feel like a solo experience. This is me taking people away from invasions where I could invade you and kill you and your friends that are over leveled. So it's not really any way to benefit me at all, but I would say that a solo playthrough for a first playthrough, I would always recommend that, because that sense of satisfaction when you take an hour on a boss, and of course I understand people don't have an hour to waste on something, but have it be a challenge that you do every once in a while. Come back, come home from work, do that 1 hour, try that boss. When you finally get that boss that you're stuck on, I feel it's going to be a giant sense of achievement that not many games can really offer. It has changed my outlook on video games like that. And I think it's done that for a lot of people, a sense of satisfaction in something that can cause a lot of rage sometimes. Once it finally hits and you realize you did something right, or you catch something from the boss, that moment will always be something that you remember, especially for your first playthrough of a Souls game. But I think that's kind of one of the big things that these games have added. It gave a lot of people patience, and it definitely gave me a huge amount of patience compared to what I used to have. Would you ever consider doing more content involving chat? And of course they're talking about chat over on Twitch, which is pretty much where I do live streams almost every single day. If you guys go and watch there, of course, and if you haven't, come and watch it live. It's usually a lot more content. What you guys get on YouTube is very much cut down, and I would say some of the best moments, and it's kind of like the digestible bits for people who don't have 2 hours to watch a stream. But if you do, and you ever want to hang out, come over on Twitch and watch some games live. But absolutely, some of the funniest content that I've done has been with chat. Typically I don't upload a lot of it because I like having that for like Twitch and doing that with everybody on there. And of course I'll announce it on YouTube. I'll upload a video saying I'm live playing with people. One of my favorite streaming moments was when I did the 24-hour live streams and we played that one game, Quipple, with everybody in chat. And it's the most I've ever laughed anytime ever in my life. I was delusional after 22 hours straight of streaming and being awake and having this funny ass moment. People kept these goddamn Hagrid jokes. If you were there, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they just were killing me, and I could not freaking take it and stop laughing. Maybe one day I'll make a video out of that just so people can see all those jokes, but that 24-hour live stream is still on there. Go watch the Quapple bit of that, and it's the most I've ever laughed. And it's just one of my favorite moments, and I do want to have more moments like that, but I guess we need games, we need more games to do that with. So hey, this is a good chance. If you have any suggestions for cool games to play with everybody over on Twitch, then feel free to leave them here, and of course go drop a follow so you could join on in whenever I do it. Is it better to have lost a loved one than to have not lost a loved one? Is it better to have lost a loved one? Yeah. Well, it's obviously the second one. Between losing somebody and not losing somebody, you know what? I'd rather choose not to lose somebody. Thank you for the insightful question. Are there any games you enjoy that you would like to stream or show on YouTube but don't because of lack of views or interest or similar reasons? Now, typically I'll upload whatever on YouTube, Depending if I continue a series is very much dependent on something like interest or views, but for the most part, I'll pretty much upload whatever I want and whatever I think is funny. In general, if something like doesn't make it to the YouTube channel, it's most likely because I didn't think it was that funny, or like it was just not great when it was edited. But pretty much everything you see, like I'll upload anything I want. But of course, being that it is like a job, views and interest are very important. So like continuing a series and, you know, doing a long playthrough or something like that is very much dependent on that. And while I may do that on Twitch, and you'll always see me do stuff like that on Twitch, where I'll stop playing something on YouTube, upload like 1 or 2 parts on YouTube, but then finish the whole thing on Twitch. I feel like that's like the fun part that I like doing. You know, I like playing through games fully, and this is more like, you know, I can't necessarily have like 6 videos or something like that in a row that just do terribly, because YouTube really punishes you for shit like that, unfortunately. So as much as I would love to basically upload every single part of everything that I like, it would really kill the channel. So Twitch is the big place where I will finish a lot of things, like playthroughs like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima are 2 things a lot of people always ask me about. I do have all those playthroughs saved on Twitch, but did not finish them on YouTube for that exact reason. So I apologize that if there's ever a series that you really like that I wasn't able to finish. Unfortunately, that is one of the bigger reasons, but I will always play and upload whatever I wanted, mainly because, you know, I feel like those are my favorite things to do, just the variety. And I think it keeps me sane. You know, I can't play Dark Souls every single day over and over and over forever. I feel like it would drive me crazy, you know. So if you enjoy those, you know, like horror games and random games here and there, those are always some of my favorites, for sure. Will there be any more modded Sekiro playthroughs? To be honest, I guess we need more mods for that game. Would you rather a Bloodborne remastered with PC compatibility, a Bloodborne remaster with slight changes, or Bloodborne 2? I feel like this is just the easiest question. Like, who would ever rather have a Bloodborne remastered over just a straight up new Bloodborne? Obviously, it would be very different if like From Software wasn't involved, but in general, a second completely new game will always be my go-to. I'd rather have a new IP than have Bloodborne remastered or Bloodborne on PC, if I'm being completely honest. Will that ever come out? Who knows? But yeah, there's my answer. Bloodborne 2 without a doubt. That's an easy one too. If you had to be cursed with a fetish for feet or armpits, which would you choose and why? Who asked this? What happened to the old school? What happened to tits, ass? Where have we gotten to as a society that we're asking about feet or armpits? Are feet or armpits? Feet, definitely. You know what? You armpit weirdos really freak me out. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now openly. What is it? I don't get it. Ever thought of doing a day in the life of Prod type of video? Guys, I have the laziest and worst life, alright? Not worst, that sounded really bad, but I meant like the most boring life. I guess, there you go, that's much better. I wake up, I eat breakfast, I either stream or I'll edit, and then whatever I didn't do, so let's just say I stream, then I'll eat food, and then edit, and then maybe stream again or keep editing and eat more food, and then watch anime. That's my life. There's nothing fun about it, alright? There's a day in the life would be the most boring thing. I just set up the camera in the corner. You can watch me move 4 inches. I feel like that'd be the most I'd look like a sloth in the video. I'd move about as much as they do in about a 12-hour period. I don't know how interesting that'd be, but maybe. Who knows? These are 2 good questions that are kind of connected to each other. What's your favorite anime, and what got you into anime? Or what was my first anime? Did I ever watch Evangelion is another part of the question. I have watched Evangelion. Yeah, it is really good. What got me into anime? Really just my friend would tell me so much about anime and just kind of, I guess, wore me down to the point where I decided to finally watch a suggested show. And I think the first one I ever watched was Death Note. And I really enjoyed it. I typically didn't like anime at all before that. I was the whole average person that was like, you know, this is for kids. And I guess mainly it's because I grew up on like Dragon Ball Z. And, you know, those are animes, but they don't really count as like first animes you've ever seen, right? Everybody's seen Dragon Ball Z when they're like 6. But Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh! I guess would be the first technically, but like when I actually started watching it and started watching consistently, Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, Sword Art Online. What else is there? There's a couple big. Hunter x Hunter was another one that I watched at the time, and Hunter x Hunter being my favorite of all time. But yeah, it pretty much just started off with that. I finally watched it after a friend told me, but I'm glad I did because still love it to this day. Does it feel disappointing that Elden Ring doesn't have the same level of replayability as Dark Souls 3? Now, I think that Elden Ring has just as much, if not more, replayability. I think the issue is that there's just so much of it. You know, having 160 bosses as like playing a full 100% playthrough definitely feels much more difficult on Elden Ring, and I feel like people have a harder time kind of getting back into that game if they decide that they want to do a playthrough of that. Even though there are, you know, there's so many bosses. You can play the game after killing like 25, 26 bosses or something like that, which is essentially the same as like Dark Souls 3, but it has actually made me appreciate Dark Souls 3 more coming out. I think Dark Souls 3 has, I still think it has like better peak bosses. For example, like Gale and Midir are two bosses that I feel are better than any boss in Elden Ring. But I do think Elden Ring has more better bosses than Dark Souls 3 does. And essentially, they're both about the same in length if you really just kind of speed through the main bosses that you have to kill. While maybe kind of going from side to side and kind of getting a couple of little ones that you like. But in general, they're about the same length. And I would say have about the same replayability. Do I plan to do more content with Super, my brother? And I guess it's just finding the right things to do. We did a couple of videos, I think pretty much just one video that we've done on each channel. We did the April Fool's joke that hopefully some people watched, if you know what I'm talking about. And we just got to find the right things. I'm sure we'll do some stuff together for his channel for Mortal Kombat. And maybe one day I'll pop him on a boss or something on Elden Ring or Dark Souls 3. And see if he can beat it. I guess if you guys have a suggestion on which boss, and don't say Melania, because I know people are going to go to Melania. I thought like Gunder would be a good first challenge for him. But yeah, I would actually like to see if he could kill a Dark Souls boss. So if you guys want to watch that, you let me know. Would you consider doing a random weapon select for Elden Ring? I've talked about this before, but I feel like there's too many weapons that are just not great in Elden Ring. I think Dark Souls 3 was more focused on skill, in my opinion, other than like the cheesy shit you see now when it comes to the PvP, which is a lot of the reason why I don't play it anymore. Back when I did that series, I feel like the game was more focused on like just initial skill and how you could handle a situation, so you could kind of get a kill with just about any weapon, in my opinion, on Dark Souls 3, where in Elden Ring, some of the weapons just are so overwhelmingly bad compared to other things. It's incredibly difficult. You know, I've used shit weapons in the arena, and like the people that I go up against, you know, will be just the biggest tryhards with, you know, moon veils and great lances. It's just so difficult. I just feel like the content wouldn't be good, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like there'd be so much stuff I have to cut. And back then, I didn't like cutting like a lot of the deaths and stuff. In terms of how entertaining I think it would be, I just don't think it'd be entertaining enough that would warrant a playthrough of doing that series again. But I don't know, maybe if there's some type of balances that come out, I'll consider it. But for the most part, I don't really have a plan for any type of random weapon select at the moment. If you had to pick a game of the Souls trilogy to be trapped in the rest of your life, which would you pick? And odds are I'd probably pick one that has cute Firekeeper, and I'd probably die falling asleep on her lap. Which sounds really sad, but who the fuck would... People are like, you know what, I'd be the hero. I'd take out Midir. Midir? You see yourself? I see myself. I know my potential. I will die on the lap of the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3. She keeps trying to push me off, and you know what? That's where I would be. Most likely than not. I'd be like one of the sad ones that gets revived back and goes, I'm sad I've been revived. Like, what's his fucking face from Dark Souls 3? I'd be that guy. So probably Dark Souls 3, I'm gonna be honest. Or I can go kill Midir and maybe I would be the hero. But I think that does it for a lot of the questions that we've answered today. You know what, a quick one that somebody asked, which was what program do I use for editing? And I use Adobe Premiere Pro. It does cost money, but if you want to learn how to edit, It's fairly simple. Somebody asked me what like techniques I use to edit. I don't really have any techniques, to be honest. If I ever think of something funny that I don't know how to do, I just literally look up that one thing, which is a good way to start editing if you guys ever want. Instead of like learning a ton of things like all at once and kind of having all this knowledge and maybe forgetting a bunch of different things. If you ever have something you want to edit and you have an idea like, oh, I want to make this part get all squiggly or spin or zoom in, and you don't know how to do it, just go look on YouTube for that specific, just how to zoom in on something, how to make the screen flip, something like that. There almost always will be tutorials. But yeah, self-taught, all YouTube stuff is pretty much how I learned to edit as well, with first iMovie. And then I got rid of my Mac, and then I had to learn how to use Adobe Premiere like 4 or 5 years ago, and that was a pain in the ass, by the way, going from iMovie, which is super basic, simple shit, to this. But this has so many more tools and is a lot more useful. So hey, maybe even start off with iMovie if you have a Mac. Anyways, that is going to be it for the final question. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, a like is very much appreciated. And once again, maybe if you want to see more of these, leave another question if you didn't see it in the video that you want answered. Anyways, have a good one. See you all in the next one.